When you go live.
Yeah, we're live.
All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the COVID-19 debate that we will be having today with a few gentlemen and ladies who take this issue of particular concern of whether schools should open or not. Why should they open and why should they not open? So they'll be telling us today which decision the government should be taking as a directive so that the public can be comfortable. Right. As at 11 July,
what is happening now? What is happening?
We have lost the facilitator.
Yeah, I think. All right. Otherwise, I think we can just go on with the program of the day since we all know the rules in place. And when he joins us, he will just join in the conversation and take over from where we will be. But I'm just going to read some of the instructions that he had outlined beforehand so that everyone who's watching can see what the instruction and the rules of the engagement will be. Let me quickly go to the meeting and read. All right. Our facilitator's name is Craig Dube. Rule number 1, the facilitator will introduce today's topic before handing to the first team or speaker to thresh out their first point, of which we will take turns. Number 2, each speaker has 1.5 to 2 minutes to put their points across. Thereafter, the facilitator will afford the next speaker an opportunity to speak. Number 3, please ensure that your microphone is on mute when it is not your chance to speak. Number 4, as this is a live broadcast on the TMP channel, we need to adhere to all the time prompt signaled by the facilitator. Number 5, under no circumstances shall the swearing be tolerated. Number 6, keep it clean and respectful. Let's enjoy and build each other through debate and not forget this is a family platform we are on. And number 7, it's a quick disclaimer. Oh, the facilitator is back. Over to you, sir, facilitator. We are on point number 7 of the rules of mentioning that this is not a TMP organized event.
Thank you very much. These things happen with technology and network these days. With social distancing, we can't have this thing all in one setting. So we are battling with all these connections, ups and downs. But anyway, welcome back to me on this platform. As Mathori, as Miracle has mentioned, this is not a TMP organized event, but today we're using the TMP platform to try and thresh out some points as to whether schools should open or schools should not open in light of the current pandemic that the world is facing, more especially South Africa now, since we're seeing peak numbers in terms of the positive cases that are being reported. And I'm sure 1 or 2 of you know of a couple of people who've actually sadly passed on due to this pandemic. So today the question is, should we have schools open under these circumstances, or should we not have schools open in circumstances? And I'd like to introduce our speakers for the day. We have Miracle Chawane, who is the host of the TMP program that happens on Mondays and Thursdays. In his team, we have Eric Mabunda, as well as Clifford Sibone, who will be saying schools must open. And they'll be letting us know why schools must open. And in the other team, on the non-affirmative side, is Wisani Letsiba, Itumeleng Moropo, and Tony Ramutla, saying that schools should not open. I would like to give to the first speaker in that group, who will be Miracle Chawane, to tell us why schools should open under these current circumstances. Over to you, Miracle.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to be the first speaker. But if I may request, can I request that Clifford be the first speaker since he's the one who proposed the challenge?
As per your wish, sir. Clifford Sibone, please go ahead with your team's opening statement, sir.
Okay, thank you, facilitator. First and foremost, I would like to welcome you all, comrades, and for honoring this invitation and coming here so that we can engage on this subject matter, so as to ensure that we ultimately get to find one another in this topic. So I'm affirmative, and I've always maintained the affirmative part of this whole topic to say that the schools should open. Reason being that it is long overdue. Taking into cognizance that when the national disaster was declared in March, which is now been 4 months since it was declared, there's been a scourge of viruses which happened in our country. What we have taken into consideration is the fact that this virus is non-avoidable. And then whether we open now in September or in December or next year, the result of the matter is that the cases are still going to rise. So we need to take into cognizance that we need to learn to live with this virus. That is the only way in which we can move forward, by living with the virus. USA has taken a decision at this current moment to say that they are opening their schools. China has taken a decision to say that they are opening their schools. And a lot of countries have taken that decision. Also taking into cognizance, because I'm very much aware that we're on the peak level of this particular virus, taking into cognizance that children or people who are in actual fact still at a young age are not too much at risk for this particular virus called COVID-19. They are not at risk, not necessarily of not being infected, but they're not at the risk of also spreading the virus. That is the expert knowledge that has come in front to tell us. You can even go and check the particular stats that are even talking to this particular pandemic. You will then be able to realize some of the things about this particular virus, which I think many people are not aware of. So whether you open now or next year, is still going to be the same challenge, the same issue. Again, comrades, you need to take into cognizance that the current healthcare system of our country, as it exists today, it is failing in terms of the public sector. So primarily, the reason behind lockdown was for preparation and all that. But if there is a cure for this for this particular virus, if there is a vaccine for this particular virus, we all know, all of us who are using the public sector or the public facilities, that the government of the day is unable to provide us with the basic necessities in terms of medications. So we must always keep in mind when we engage that such will still continue to exist, that you can find the cure, but there will be limited medication. Then what is going to happen? Infection will still continue. And there is this particular exaggeration, or rather possession. People are too much possessed with the number of infections. The reality of the matter is that these infections will continue to occur, but who it occurs on is the number one problem. That is why we must always continuously make sure that we isolate those people which are at risk. The risky people are the elderly, are the people who have got comorbidities. Those are the kind of people that must be isolated. However, someone might argue that there are children who go off to school and come back. As I initially said, that it is not even different from these ones who go to work. Again, there are certain things that you need to take into consideration. There is a need to take responsibility as people of a certain family, especially when it comes to people who are elderly people, and make sure that we try by all means to live with this particular virus. So my argument is that the schools must open, not to say that children must go and not be infected. Infections will occur at school. That is a matter of fact. But we need to learn to live with the virus. And it's not like they are saying children must go to school and become reckless at school. Children are going to school. There are new measures in place. Even where I am currently, there are measures in place which I don't like, by the way, but there are measures in place which are put to say that you cannot do this, you cannot do that. However, something normal is happening. I am here because I've not been here for a long time. So I'm on the affirmative side of saying schools must not open based on some of the reasons, but to put it short, I think those are some of the few reasons I would say that they are there to make sure that we open up the schools facilities to allow people to go to school, but however, put measures in place to make sure that we avoid a skyrocketing spread of infection in this country. As I pause, Comrade Facilitator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tim. As we heard some poignant points there as to why schools should be opening. Now we move on to the non-affirmative side, where these guys will tell us why should schools not be opening. First of all, I would like to ask Mr. Tony Ramutla to come to the fore and let us know why should schools not be opening. Over to you, Tony.
Thank you, Craig Dube. First of all, I'd like to greet all the listeners who are here. We're living in a society that is controlled by democracy. By this, which I mean, it's all about the votes, which the decision comes from our politician. So coming back to the main point, we're dealing with a pandemic that we don't understand. It's coming from wherever that comes from. Now, there are precautionary measures that we need to put in place for all those things to say children must go to school. We're talking about children whereby they don't actually understand this thing. So as parents, or rather say, imagine now teachers, whatever that has been happening so far, let's take it from whatever that has been happening so far. The resources from the government that are actually posing, they are not working in terms of we're looking at the grade 12 learners. I'm going to give you an example whereby they are just playing around with sanitizers. So now we go back to, we are saying schools must open. Okay, that's fine. We have the grade 12 and the grade 7s that are going back now. So we're talking about social distancing, which is part of the precautionary measures of what we are using now. We're having before a class of about 30 learners. Now, because of social distancing, they're supposed to be 2 meters away from each other, whereby now we are talking about in a class, we're going to take about 9 to 12 learners. We still want to face in other people. So now what's going to happen at the end of the day? Why can't we just wait for our scientists to actually come up with whatever that can actually help us in that particular manner? Because now we are going to continue with bringing all these kids to school, whereby we all know that these children are young. They don't understand what's going on. I mean, for example, they're using the same taps. We don't know how long does the virus actually can sit on that type of particular surface. Now we're talking about children who can't actually do anything. They're just playing. To them, it's just a playground. So I don't think schools should actually open at this particular point. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Tony Ramutla. Very interesting points there, talking about children's understanding of the virus and also resources not being used properly in those schools. I would like to also see if we could actually bring on Mr. Aaron Mabunda, if he's in. We were having challenges connecting with him. Is Aaron in? Aaron, if you could just unmute your microphone so we could get to hear what you have to say to us, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Aaron. Please go ahead with your point, sir. Why should schools be opening?
Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and apologies for connecting very late. And I just want to greet everyone who is listening and all the
Aaron, I'm going to have to cut you off there. And I'm going to have to cut you off there whilst you try to establish your connection. For those who are just joining us now, we are talking about why should schools be opening or why should schools be closing. We're having a debate on that. Whilst Aaron tries to restore his connection, which seems to be quite poor. We've had points from Mr. Clifford Sibone saying that schools should open and children are in sort of a lesser position to be affected by this virus than they would be if they were adults. And Tony coming there with a rebuttal saying resources are not being used properly in these schools. And, children are just taking this as a play of sanitizers, and we don't even know how long does this virus last in the air or on taps. So right now, the debate is, should schools be opening or should schools stay closed? Should children miss a grade, or what should happen? in this democratic country, everyone has got a right to air their opinion. And today, that's what we want to hear: is why should schools open? Why should schools not be open? Should not be closing. Is Miracle Chawane in here? If he can just, take over from Aaron, because Aaron seems to be having connection problems. If Aaron can just try and reestablish his connection. Miracle?
Yes, I'm here. Should I go? I thought everyone was establishing connection now. Can I go?
Yes, we're still having problems connecting to his side because his internet is quite up and down. If you could go, sir, in his place.
No problem. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mr. Facilitator, and thank you so much for the invitation to this very important debate of our time. And to start off with, I believe it was Benjamin Franklin who said, "You never choose safety over freedom, because if you do, you don't deserve either one of them." And that includes the freedom of education. And I strongly believe that, because what I see from what's happening right now is this is a political matter. It's that there is an attack upon our freedom as humanity. But now bring it down to the issue of opening of schools. I think schools are very important in restabilizing our societies. As we know the state of our societies in South Africa, there's a lot of domestic abuse that goes on. Now imagine when a child is within the borders of the domestic abuse, where the parent is abusing the mother in front of the children and abusing the children themselves. How much trauma are you creating in the children when they see that? We know that our public in South Africa is not at a state to afford things like internet and computers. How do you then expect a child in primary school to be able to use these things that we are failing to use today, like Zoom, like internet connection, like your laptops? Fine, you might suggest that maybe the government will subsidize, but how many computers does a family of 5 children need to make sure that each of those children are at school at the same time? Well, the next point I'm going to raise is that you cannot put a child who is supposed to be in preschool and primary school in the hands of a Zoom screen to learn. If that was the case, I mean, we shouldn't need schools anyway, because you just put them in front of a TV and boom, they have their education. I mean, most of us adults here are just here trying to figure out how Zoom works. Imagine a child in primary school. Okay, I don't know which number, but the second point is, as for children in the middle schools, the last thing or the last place you want to leave them, it's at an online platform. I mean, children on their own, they bully each other in front of their teachers. How about leaving them in the Twitter streets where the utmost abuse is happening? You don't want to leave your children in the hands of Twitter and online platforms. It's just not responsible. High school kids themselves are losing hope of their future, because at the beginning of the year, they had high hopes that perhaps they're going to finish school and go to university and advance their families' lives. But right now, that hope is being set on fire. And perhaps I think that's why we see the digging of 1.5 million graves in Gauteng, so that children can go and bury their dreams. But I don't see it as a practical thing to do for the current society in South Africa. Lastly, before I give it on to the next point, is that we are trying to rebuild our economy. How do you practically rebuild an economy when employees are supposed to be at work, working hard for their employers? Because we know that companies are the driver of the economy. An employee is supposed to now work from home. As they're working from home, they're supposed to homeschool their kids. By the way, that employee has 5 kids, and they must still adhere to the deadlines that are set to a leader or a boss at work who is not cognizant of the realities of what we are facing today. How much stress are you creating in an employee, and how much restabilization and rebuilding of an economy do you expect out of such a scenario? So, as a matter of concluding for this part of the session, is that we need to open schools, because as my fellow partner Clifford has said, we cannot run away from COVID-19 anymore. We tried running away from it on level 1, on level 5. That was the only effective level that would work in trying to minimize the spread of the virus. But as of now, we cannot stop the virus. We just need to find ways of dealing with it. And one of the best ways to deal with the virus is by strengthening our immune systems. Why aren't we talking about that in the social medias? Why aren't we talking about that in the media platforms? We need to strengthen our immune systems and we live, because there's no cure for coronavirus. There's no medicine for coronavirus. How do people recover? They recover through improving their immune systems, and we have more positive cases of people recovering from the people who are actually dying. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miracle Chawane, with some very strong points there, talking about the technological aspect of things when it comes to homeschooling children. How many computers does one need to homeschool 5 children, say, in a household? Also talking about the rebuilding of the economy, which also ties in with parents working from home and also parents, trying to homeschool at the same time. Also, the problem of cyberbullying, which is quite an immense thing that's happening these days. But look, I'm not here to discuss these points. And before we move on to the next speaker, who will be Itumeleng Moropolo, I would like to thank the TMP channel for having us host this debate on their platform. TMP happens on every Monday 9 p.m. That's when the new videos air, as well as TMP Q&A every Wednesday. So look out for the programs that are run on the TMP channel, which discuss various issues of life, from what we are facing now, the COVID pandemic, to general the economics, anything and everything is discussed on that channel. But as long as it touches human lives, we discuss it on the TMP. Up next, I would like to welcome Mr. Itumeleng Moropolo to give us his pointers on why should schools not open. I mean, this is getting interesting now. I really would want to hear why schools shouldn't be opening. Itumeleng, over to you, sir.
No, good day. Thanks for having me, and thanks for having us. Good day to all our listeners and to all participants. We are here sitting here today debating about whether schools should open or should not open. Few days just before the World Health Organization has just considered this virus to be an airborne disease. Just from Friday to Saturday, there's been an increase of about 13,400 and something of cases. So in South Africa here, we know South Africa is a developing country with poor infrastructure in schools, with poor sanitation in our schools. So we are opposed to reopening of schools, not because we don't value education, not because we are underestimating the value of our education towards our children, especially in the context of South Africa, where there is a high number of gender-based violence in the homes. But our objection is based solely on the fact that in South Africa, we know that there are about 3,800 something schools which are still using pit latrine toilets. We know there are about 3,500 and something schools that are still without water. For a typical example, here in Limpopo, in Waterberg district alone, there are about 26 schools that do not have running water. So how do you expect such kind of learners to maintain a healthy environment, to wash their hands regularly as per regulations? So coming to the issue of saying, no, children are not at risk, we know from the given facts or from the scientific information that is there, that the idea of children not being too much at risk is not yet explored. Like as we are speaking today, in Gauteng alone, within a week, there were seven deaths of children who are below the age of 9. So the issue of children not being able to transmit the virus or being at the lower risk is neither here nor there, because it has not been explored in the context of the constant exposure to high volume of viruses, of which I believe now we are at that peak. So our objection is based on solely on the fact of the health risk factors that should be considered. And as far as the issue of tackling the issue of home learning, we know in the South African context that firstly, we have poor internet connections, so we are not going there. Our point is that reopening schools now it will be a mistake. So our proposal is that the schools should be closed maybe up until next year, because there's no point of opening schools and later on to come and reclose them when the children are already infected. I mean, like Premier Oscar Mawuyani was just reporting that about 200 schools in his province have been closed since the reopening of schools on the 8th of June. So there's really no point in exposing children to the virus, knowingly that later on the very same schools are still going to close. And coming back to the issue of children, we must take children holistically because they are members of the society. We know in South Africa, most of the children, they are being raised by their grandparents, grandmothers, grandfathers, because their parents are there in Gauteng, where is the epicenter of the virus. They are there waiting for them. So for those children who are unmonitored on their way to their school, during the breaks, they will contract the virus and go back and infect the very same old people that we are saying we should protect them, the old people. I know somebody will raise this point saying that, but those children already they are on the streets loitering around. But remember, when you are opening schools, you are opening about 7 million people to the system. You are opening new chains of transmissions. So, okay, let's say for argument's sake, there are children who are loitering around the streets. But you can't tell me that all the 7 millions of children, they are loitering around the street. So we're saying closing of the schools will also help in the keeping of virus, especially in the context that now the economy is now being reopened. So that is our basis of saying schools should be closed for now, at least for now, maybe up until next year.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Itumeleng Moropo. Sorry, I mispronounced your surname at first and said Moropolo, but my apologies, my sincere, humble apologies. I hope you accept them. Moving over to our audience that is on YouTube, we have a couple of comments coming in from a lady called Ntombi Mvala, who says, I also think schools shouldn't be open. We need to accept that we are experiencing a transition into the fourth industrial revolution, which will require us to move more towards technology. My opinion would be that we should shift our focus more on how we can improve learning from home. Education should not be boxed within the borders of classrooms. And Tibato Amos says, no schools should be reopened. Corona is real and kills. Wow, what strong points coming out there from Dombivala and Tibato Amos, who are on both sides of the equator, saying that schools should not be open, right? And we also had some points from Itumeleng Moropo saying the internet connection issue is one of note. Two, the issue of running water, which are two of the things I picked up from his argument, saying that those are the biggest things to look at now in terms of should schools open or should schools not be open, obviously with them saying that schools should not be open. And I'm hoping right now on the line we still have Mr. Aaron Mabunda to come and give us his points on why should schools be opening. Aaron, are you with us now? Is Aaron with us? I hope he's with us. Okay. Since Aaron is still trying to reach us, I think he's there now. Aaron, are you with us now?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Can you please go ahead on why should schools be opening? Aaron, your connection is intermittent. I don't know if I'm the only one who's struggling to hear Aaron.
Yeah. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, please do go ahead with your point, Aaron. All right. Whilst Aaron is still trying to establish his connection to us, which is actually really giving us troubles, it actually rebuts on the point of what Itumeleng was saying. Internet connection is a problem in South Africa. Not that I'm supporting his point, but hey, it is what it is. That is what we're seeing right now. But I would like to actually just give it to the floor to the people who are actually just coming to this debate, who are actually watching with us on Zoom. I noticed a gentleman by the name of Vincent Mukari. I know this is putting you on the spot, sir. But what are your views when it comes to the opening and closing of schools? I'll give you just about a minute and a half just to tell us why you think schools should open or why you think schools should not be opening. Vincent Mukari, over to you, sir.
Thanks, sir, for the opportunity. I realize I don't have minutes, so I have to shoot straight. I will say the question I will ask the debaters is, if we say school should open now, when will it open? Because we are going to stay with the virus maybe 2 to 3 years. That's the first question. The next question that follows this one is, if you say, like Comrade Intumeling was saying, if you're saying it must open next year, will we be done with the virus next year, or will we be having the very same condition now? There are other questions that I would want to pose to the other debaters is, checking the environmental condition of schools in our country. In South Africa, maybe from where I'm coming from, we're 80 plus in one classroom. And as we're speaking, no any new infrastructure has been built. So are you saying 80 plus students should go to one classroom now? Or what should happen? What should be the next step going towards the opening of the school? Because it's obvious case. One school cannot accommodate all learners at one place. Because some schools are struggling to accommodate at least grade 11 and grade 12. So what more if all grades are into the schools? So I think before I view my point, I would want to pose this question to our debaters so that they take the debate more. Thanks, Comrade Facilitator, for this time.
Thank you very much, Vincent Mukari. What poignant questions you've asked there, because the first question I got was, when should they open, if schools should open? And the next one was, will we be done with COVID-19 if we open schools this year or next year? And another thing that Vincent mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, he was saying, has there been any new infrastructure built to facilitate for us to open schools? Because when we look at it right now, we still have the same infrastructure where we had 80 learners in the class. And now if we're going to do social distancing, should the same 80 learners be going into the same class? So that's food for thought as the debaters are still crunching themselves. I see some are looking to the side, some are trying to, recenter themselves to think, oh my gosh, should really schools be opening? Should schools not be opening? Do we open and do we not? I think right now, what we can do is let's try and get a commercial break and give our debaters, some time to digest what has just been asked by Vincent. We shall be off for a commercial break in the next 2 minutes. We will be back right here on the Miracle Perspective channel on this debate of COVID-19. Should schools open or should schools not be opening? Over to you in studio.
Coming up. On the next episode of the TMP Legends Show.
Big man, you're so smart, go and find better things to do. You will not amount to anything.
Tell us a little bit about that story and what was going on in your mind.
I was mocked quite a lot. Even at home, they thought mentally I've lost it because I'm doing something out of the norm. I found much about myself by starting projects that failed along the way. I found myself, making a move, because I think sometimes we wait for a perfect moment, you wait to get found. So I was just doing this, but still my vision was, not yet defined.
Resourcefulness is the ultimate resource.
Absolutely.
And what was driving?
It's not just about making money, driving an expensive car, living in a beautiful house, because I believe that, making money without having character also can destroy you.
Tune in on Monday at 9 p.m. CAT, only on The Miracle Perspective.
Welcome back to the Miracle Perspective channel, where we are holding a debate on whether schools should open or should they remain closed. And we've got some points that came through here from the affirmative side and the non-affirmative side, and as well as one of our viewers, Mr. Vincent Mukari, who was saying, when should schools be open? And I would like to just pose this question just randomly to one of the guys who's already debated. Mr. Clifford Siboni, when do you think schools should open?
I think schools should open effective immediately, because I'm on the affirmative side. So I'm not having any time frames. What I'm just saying is that since as well the department has already taken a decision to open the schools as of now, so they must just open the schools, but there must be measures in place.
Okay, thank you very much for that view. And I would also like to ask, on the non-affirmative side, Itumeleng Moropo, when should schools be open? Because you're saying schools should remain closed. And if they're to open, when should they open? And will we be done with COVID-19 when you say that they should open?
Okay, no, thanks. We are here dealing with two competing interests: the health interest and the right to education of learners. My view is that not much is known about this virus. I mean, like just before the virus started, just before Tuesday, we didn't know that this virus is an airborne disease. So our knowledge of the virus is still evolving. And there are still some tests in relation to the Q and the other things that are needed to deal with the virus. Certainly not by January, the virus will not have disappeared. But my view is that in the meantime, let's wait up until next year while much is being learned about the virus, while the education department is still being given the opportunity to restructure their education system and to venture also into the home education, because equally sending students or children to an unsafe environment, which we know without a doubt that the environment is unsafe. I mean, like as things are now, most schools or many schools, especially in the rural areas, they are struggling with the infrastructure, which makes it highly impossible for social distancing to be practicable in those type of schools, and which makes it practically impossible for hygiene to be maintained, because you can't maintain hygiene when you don't have an adequate running water. So my view is that let schools be placed on hold up until next year, while the education department, maybe they can, who knows, maybe the government owns the SABC channel, they can try to make some sort of means to establish channels to teach the students there on SABC, or they can improve the internet connectivity in rural areas. But at least they will have chance to plan ahead instead of sending children.
I'll have to stop you there, sir, because I think you've got so many points saying that schools should not open. And, you are obviously of the assertion that You'd rather miss a grade than to dig a grave. But at the same time,
Yes.
some people still want the opportunity for the economy to keep going, and as well as children to keep learning. Right. One of those people is Aaron Mabunda, whom I've been struggling to connect with for the longest of time since the beginning of this meeting. I'm hoping that right now you can actually convince us as to why should schools open. Aaron, over to you, sir.
Oh, yes, thank you very much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. My colleagues have already issued different statements, and which I concur with. But I just want to add, collaborating it with other views from the other side. My first colleague spoke about issues of social distancing, taps, screening, and sanitization when these schools return to their respective schools, when the learners go to their schools. Okay, I just want to make 3 points here, or 2, just to save time. There are measures that are in place. The government have employed youth brigades, which are responsible to screen, sanitize, and make sure that social distancing is adhered to in all the schools. And that is being done as we speak. So what is happening now is that when you go to school, when Elena goes to school now, as we speak, before you get inside the school, you are sanitized, and then the temperature is checked, as well as to make sure that you are wearing a mask before you enter inside. In each and every class, there is a person who is as a rep, who is responsible to sanitize students who goes out and in, as in when they want to go to the toilet and all that. I just wanted to clarify the issue of saying our learners won't be able to adhere to the measures and all that. Again, we don't know the due date of this virus, when is it going to end. My brother Clifford made it very clear that for as long as it's that, for me, I'm saying the opening of schools is overdue, and the department has made it very well to make sure that schools are open. And again, I just want to give a background on the testing part, because many people are scared because of news to say today 3,000, 13,000 new cases and all that. But then we have got these issues that the same students or the same learners that we are saying they must not go to school, they are not practicing social distance in their respective homes. They are not wearing masks. They are not being sanitized. Yes, there are few parents who are doing it, who are consistently adhering to the measures and all that. But my point is, if we were to go out anyway, I just don't know, maybe because I'm in another busy playing here. The parents, now malls are open, restaurants are open, and they go to a shopping center with them, wearing masks. But my problem is that they don't allow them to go to school with the same care that they're giving them when they go out with them. Again, these parents, some of them, they're back at work. They go to work, they come back. So I just find it difficult to understand that why is it that it's a problem when it comes to the learners going to school in relation to all measures that are being there. The government has put the measures, they are there. Everything is there. Again, I heard my brother saying we should open next year because we are still not clear as to what is this virus and all those things. I think we are almost on 5 weeks now, or approaching 2 months, if not mistaken. We had that chance to plan about all those issues that we're talking about. And for as long as we don't know when is this thing going to disappear or to end, I don't think it's wise not to open, because we don't know when is it going to end. So we rather plan now to live with it, more like other viruses where that is around us, where we have made it, measures are there, we are living with it. So even this one, which that we don't know when it's going to end, I think it's about time everyone understand that it's here, whether it's you can find it, but we need, so that the children must be given a chance to go to school and make sure that, for as long as I can disagree on a point that if in a school, in a certain school, there are no people who are making sure that the measures are being followed, then that particular school must be isolated. But now, because the government said we cannot take back your learners in a school that is not safe, firstly, we are going to sanitize and we are going to make sure that everything is clean and make sure that we deploy people to make sure that everything that we have promised it's adhered to. And I have seen that happening. So my point is we should be in a debate of complaining about whether these things are there or not. And again, just my last point to talk about rural school areas. I understand, I'm also from a rural area. I understand some of the deep rural areas, they don't have good infrastructure. But to be honest, when we come about social distancing and having few learners in classes, in most deep rural areas, you find that a grade 12 is only having 58 learners, only, the whole school. So, which is very easier. In fact, it is easier to deal with these things in rural areas if we may put aside the issues of infrastructure and all that, of which I'm speaking under correction in terms of how many schools so far that are not operating or that are not in operation because of infrastructure and all that. But what I can say in conclusion is that the learners must go back to school. That's what I'm saying. And for as long as the measures are being adhered to, we need to allow that to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aaron. We had difficulty connecting with you from the beginning, but some very good points that you give there right now. And I think it was well worth the wait that we get your connection to, be stable. So we hear from you. And going back to the YouTube channel, we'd like to thank the TMP, the Miracle Perspective, for having us host this debate on their channel, on their esteemed channel, which has over 1,000 followers, to actually thresh out the points on why should schools be opening or why should schools remain closed in this difficult time of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm going to go back there to the channel where people are commenting and saying, Mr. MT Tabani says, schools should not be open. Straight and simple, straight to the point. Rudy Chawana says, schools should open because COVID-19 will remain with us for a long time. So if we close schools, how long are we going to close them? And Rudy Chawana says, the only thing that we need to do is to make sure that the learners take necessary measures that have been put in place to protect themselves against the deadly virus. And just to go back to a point that was said by Ntombi Vala, she says, education should not be boxed within the borders of the classroom. So the debate here was, should schools open or should schools not be open? And right now, I'd like to give it to the last members of each team to give us their closing arguments as to why should we open schools and why should we not open schools. And I'd like to give this opportunity to Mr. Tony Ramotla to actually give us a closing statement from his team as to why should schools remain closed. Tony, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Facilitator. There's a couple of things that most of our fellow mates mentioned. We're talking about parents here, parents whom we are sure of that they'll be able to take care of themselves. They understand that we are in a different life, in a different situation whereby we no longer live the way we used to live. Now we're going to children. You cannot compare the parents with the children. The children are careless. as I mentioned before, we're talking about children of grade 12, whereby they're just using sanitizers as if it's something that you can play with. I mean, they were sanitizing their hands, their heads, you know, almost everywhere. It's like it's a spray. So imagine we're talking about the people that we expect to understand where we are. Now you're bringing the smaller children, whereby they don't actually understand anything. They are just there because you're telling them what to do. Hence, I said we don't understand this because we don't even know how long it's there on the surface. It can actually live on the surface, whereby these people now, they are supposed to not share anything. We're going back to schools whereby they share books, they share a lot of things, especially in our rural areas. We also go to the fact that someone spoke about screening. Not all schools are being screened. And anyway, when you talk about screening is questions. When you ask a kid, are you coughing? They can literally say no. And then you cannot see if COVID is there or not. So they can actually spread it because we are not sure if they are actually immune to that, to the COVID or not. Now we're going to the schools whereby we are saying when they are not ready, they must be isolated, which means they must be closed. Now, what happens to those children that are supposed to go to that school where other people are actually continuing, which means there's actually an imbalance when it comes to education level with all of them. Now, you have certain people that are actually every day just because it's difficult for one to homeschool children. Hence, my fellow mate here, Itumeleng, said, if maybe the government owns the SABC, they can actually make it a point whereby teachers can just go to the channel and actually teach children. Then we can be able to see if there's actually a variance balance or not. And then we're talking about ideal schools. Fine. There are some schools that they have everything, especially more of them we talk about private schools. But we cannot separate the fact that our rural schools have problem when it comes to their environment. We need to not forget that. We're talking about children here. We're not talking about people who every now and then, if you tell them something, they'll be able to do. Don't tell me about children who are going to the malls. If children are at home, it's better than when they are at home than when you actually take 8 million of them out there to be exposed to the COVID. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramutla, for such passionate points as to why schools should remain closed. And I've also got another comment here on YouTube from Doyen Simango saying, Dr. Mkhize says, studies show that almost 70% of the population of South Africa will get infected one way or another. So schools should open so we can learn to live with it. For those who don't know, who are watching, who have been living under a rock, Dr. Mkhize is Dr. Zweli Mkhize, the Minister of Health from South Africa. Just in case you've been living under a rock, we need to clarify these things. But in any case, Tony went back to the point of resources not being used properly, sanitizers being sprayed all over the body, children doing things that are, haphazard. And right now, I would also like to just welcome one of our viewers, one of the last viewer who will actually speak on today's show, Maiza Official. Maiza, are you with us? If you can just give us your question or give us your point. What do you feel? Should schools open or should schools remain closed? Maiza, over to you.
Do you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Thanks to the viewers and everyone here. I'm enjoying to listen to the debate. I mean, it's very crucial to debate about that fact because we have not given opportunity as the country and the people who live here, and more specifically the teachers and such, about whether schools should open or not. So it gives an opportunity to view or to have a say. I mean, currently as we speak, we have more than 1,170, if not, of teachers who are affected by this COVID-19. Plus, we have 750, or if not 70, schools that are closed because of this coronavirus. 520-something learners or 530 learners are affected by the coronavirus. Every day when we wake up, we are told there's a new symptom to the COVID-19. So meaning we don't know what we are dealing with here. We may be dealing with something more bigger than we think. And we understand that schools should somehow open to save the academic year. But question remains, do we save the academic calendar or do we save the grave? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Maiza. Maiza bringing an important point there. Do we save the academic year or do we dig the grave? You choose what's important to you. And right now, from the affirmative team that says schools should open, I would like to welcome Miracle Chawane to give us his closing statements from his team before I hand it over to studio. Miracle, please go ahead.
Opportunity. I think it's important we shed some light onto the facts that we have and the information we know. The first point being the rate of positive infections as outlined by some of the opponents that we have today. We have a lot of cases that develop on a daily basis, but the rate of positive cases do not represent the rate of fatalities. The rate of positive cases are directly proportional to the rate of recoveries, but they are inversely proportional to the rate of fatalities. In simple terms, that means more people are recovering. We have more positive recovery cases than death cases, which is a bit moronic to go and dig 1.5 million graves when the number of fatalities is less than 5% globally. To be more precise, 4.4% of fatalities globally, but more than 58% are recovering. What does that teach us? I think the question we should be focusing on is how do we duplicate the recovery cases than running away from a virus that is not even deadly? Because the fact is that coronavirus is not a deadly virus. Coronavirus, just to shed some more technical information, there are two ways that a pathogenic virus only behaves. It either kills or it survives. Ebola was a virus that kills, and when it's in a host, it kills the host, therefore it cannot spread. But a virus like coronavirus, for it to survive, it needs people to be alive so that it can spread. That's why it spreads at a rate that it's spreading, but it's not a deadly virus. Just for us to know. Why am I giving you this information? I am giving you this information so that you remove the fear and the anxiety that you have and that media is portraying to everyone to believe that coronavirus is a death sentence. It is not a death sentence. There are things that can be done to avoid death. And by the way, all the cases that are proven to say it's corona related, there is no proof that that case of a person who died with corona was killed by corona. They died with coronavirus, but they are not killed by corona, and that's a fact. It's very important to make you aware that we can't wait for 2 years, because the truth is that they said we are going to have to live with corona for the next 2 years. We have to survive with it. We cannot wait for 2 years for schools to open. And by the way, nothing beats the power of social interactions. You cannot replace that. Number 4, if not the last point, is that there are more deadly things that we see happening on a daily basis than coronavirus. People die of more car accidents than coronavirus. People die of the normal flu that we have than coronavirus. People die from suicide than coronavirus. People kill each other through gender-based violence than coronavirus. We should focus our energy on building our families and helping people to learn by going to school, not by avoiding something that is unavoidable and not deadly. It is very, very important to remove politics from the issues of people and the health of people. What is killing people is the fear and the stress that is being portrayed that coronavirus kills. It does not kill. Let the fear run away. Let us improve our health by eating healthy. There's no cure for coronavirus. People just need to eat healthy so that their immune system can be strong and ready to fight whatever that comes to their system. So by so saying, I'm saying, Let us open schools, and I mean not only primary schools, but all the schools effectively. By the way, I don't believe in some of the measures that are put in place to avoid virus. We're going to get the virus. The cases are increasing with people taking the necessary measures. There's no one person that has got the virus who can claim that they've never worn a mask. They are wearing a mask, but they test positive. What's the point? We just need to be more careful, build your immune system. People are dying either way, and this is almost a bit insensitive. But when you're dealing with a global matter, you cannot sensitize or be sensational about the facts. Facts do not care about emotions. So the facts are that coronavirus does not kill. People with underlying diseases die from the underlying diseases. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What strong points coming from Mr. Miracle Chawani. And back to the YouTube channel, we are seeing a comment from Miss Molwedi. She says, to be honest, at school, we take necessary precautions than when kids are at home, because my learners tell me they only wear masks or sanitize when they are at school. This is a teacher, by the way, telling us this. And she also says, in reply to one of our listeners, our viewers as well, Dombi Vala, saying, home learning is not an option for parents who want to keep their kids at home. But the problem is that most of these learners don't have necessary technology or internet to do that. So clearly she's advocating for the opening of schools. And, you know, thank you very much for engaging us and letting us know what you think should happen. Should schools open? Should schools be closed? And, you know, all the statistics that came from MISA, we actually appreciate you telling us, you know, the number of teachers affected, the number of schools that are closed, and the learners that are also affected. But a debate is meant to build and is meant to open up our eyes to the other side of life, the other side that you don't think is right. But I hope now, as our viewers and you as the debaters have learned today of the other side that you have been avoiding, to think, okay, if I want schools to open, why doesn't someone want schools to open? And it's good to have debates so that we can learn from each other and, you know, we teach each other. But thank you very much to all the participants, Miracle Chawani, Eric Mabunda, Clifford Sibone, Wisanita Tsiba was not there today, Itumeleng Moropo, and Tony Ramutla. Thank you very much for actually taking your time to give us your points. And before we go, we'd also like to thank the owners of the channel of TMP Productions, The Miracle Perspective. Happening every Monday from 9 p.m. is a new episode with fire, with everything you need to know about this life that we live in. This week on The Miracle Perspective, we will be having a very special guest. I'm just trying to get the name. Hey, man, the comments are coming in thick and fast. We've got a special guest by the name of Emmanuel Bonoko, the founder of Ibonoko Holdings and Ibonoko Foundation. So you don't want to miss that episode, and he will be interviewed by yours truly, TMP, who will be, you know, asking questions to deal with life, investment, and everything. Q&A on Wednesday also will be hosted by The Miracle Perspective. And also please look out for the special editions of The Miracle Perspective next month in August, Women's Month. It's going to be a virtual one. It's also going to be social distancing happening if we're going to be viewing our guests, you know, in their offices and wherever they'll be, but it will be a good addition to it. And also please take note of the social media pages for The Miracle Perspective, where we shall let you know about future debates that are going to be happening. But from me and TMP Productions, I am CRG, and I thank you all for attending today's Zoom meeting discussing whether schools should open or not. And today, I thank you and I say goodbye.
Coming up on the next episode of the TMP Legends Show.
I don't feel like racism is still a hindrance to black people today.
What nonsense is that? Racism is a system of disadvantage based on race. Just Google acts of racism, really. You find a million things. So white people do a lot of things. They say a lot of things on a daily basis. It's stupid little things that we've normalized over time and have generalized over time, which are in and of themselves problematic. South Africa's racial problems really are a result of what happens when forgiveness is granted before the crime is acknowledged.
How do we then create an environment which is equal? Because now if a white person says to a black boy, you're stupid, or anything that is racially associated, then the white person is racist. But if a black person says the same thing to a white person, a black person can't be racist. How do we make the environment equal then in that sense?
I hear you, but I actually don't like that question.
Tune in on Monday at 9 p.m. CAT, only on The Miracle Perspective. Coming up on the next episode of the TMP Legends Show.
Big man, you're so smart, go and find better things to do. You will not amount to anything.
Tell us a little bit about that story and what was going on in your mind.
I was mocked quite a lot. Even at home, they thought mentally I've lost it because I'm doing something out of the norm. I found much about myself by starting projects that failed along the way. I found myself, making a move, because I think sometimes we wait for a perfect moment, you wait to get found. So I was just doing this, but still my vision was, not yet defined.
Resourcefulness is the ultimate resource.
Absolutely.
And what was driving?
It's not just about making money, driving an expensive car, living in a beautiful house, because I believe that, making money without having character also can destroy you.
Tune in on Monday at 9 p.m. CAT, only on The Miracle Perspective.
What do you think you, as a white folk, is your responsibility to this issue of racism?
It's very easy to just decide, okay, enough's enough, packing our bags, we're leaving. We misunderstand each other a lot. There are too many white people who do not allow black people into their life. And there are also many black people who do not allow white people into their lives.
This notion of black people can't be racist, I think it's rubbish, man.
Hey man, that's such a wrong mentality. Together we can figure something out. So that's what I'm trying to do here.
For me, it feels like we are putting a lot of pressure on white people to help us, instead of us also trying to help ourselves.
They don't have perspective. White, black, we're all human. We're all human, we all live in the same world, and we can all be beneficial towards each other.
Tune in on Monday at 9 p.m. CAT, only on The Miracle Perspective. Coming up on the next episode of the TMP Legends Show.
The COVID-19 pandemic has had a tremendous devastating impact, not only on our health as humanity, but also our economy, with a very focused reference to the real estate industry. So joining me on the next episode of the TMP Legends Show is Tumelo Ramushu, a real estate practitioner in the retail, residential, and commercial property. With his more than 10 years experience in the real estate industry, he will be sharing with us key insights into the property markets, how the effects of COVID-19 has not only had a toll on the property investor, but also how it has equally affected the average citizen. So if this sparks an interest in you, join us on the next episode of the TMP Legends Show on Monday at 9 p.m. only on The Miracle Perspective. It's finished.
Tune in on Monday at 9 p.m. CAT, only on The Miracle Perspective.
Morning star and when all stars morning star